One thing that I really love about playing board games is the amount of themes. Themes will often reflect a much more exciting reality than the one we currently live in. You could be saving the world, you could be, honestly, there's any number of themes. For instance, you could be trying to solve a case faster than Sherlock Holmes does. You could be attempting to save the world from for horrible diseases that are taking over. You could split up cash from a heist that you've done, or you could attempt to complete a quilt with Patchwork. I'll quickly show you how the game works. So this is a sample setup of the game Patchwork. You've got your board in the center here, and basically whoever has the most buttons at the end of the game wins. You'll be spiral moving along the entire board until you get to the center. Each player is given 5 buttons, their currency as well as points at the end of the game. Let's say the green player is going first. They then choose from one of the 3 tiles next to this mutual pond here, and they have to pay both a button cost as well as a time cost. So let's say they decide to pick this one here. So that's 3 away. Move this up here. They then take this, and that becomes that goes onto their quilt. They then have to move 2 spaces. They then take the piece that they bought and they place it somewhere on their grid. As the game goes on, they fill this up more and more until they have some sort of quilt here. Now the yellow player's turn, they can go and they keep playing until they pass the next player. So say there's a piece that they can take that, say this one for instance, they pay 2 buttons and only have to move 1 space. Then they can add this to their grid, move 1 space, and move on. Another option that someone could do is if there's nothing on the board that they can grab, they can choose to advance 1 space beyond the player ahead of them. So they go 1, 2, 3 for each space that they move. They take that many buttons. You'll notice some of these spaces have buttons printed on them. Now these aren't buttons that can be spent, but if they are on the board, like so, and a player passes one of these other printed buttons on the board, they then get the amount of buttons that are on their current quilt. If a player passes one of these leather patches, they get it, they can add it onto their quilt. Now it's important that they fill up these spaces because each one of these spaces that's empty at the end of the game is a -2 buttons. So once you reach the end of the game, it's important that your quilt is as filled in as possible and you've obtained as many buttons as possible. There's also a bonus if you do manage to complete an entire 7x7 grid. The boards themselves are 9x9, so it's not an entire, you don't need to fill in the entire board. Like the best of themes in games, Patchwork allows me to do something that I could never do in real life, and that is to create a quilt or sew or be creative in really any sense of the word. If there were any criticisms about this game, it's that it is only 2 players. It would be really cool to see a version of this game where you could play with multiple people. I would highly recommend this game. It's inexpensive. The gameplay and art is unique. You can play it with someone, with one other player in the span of maybe 40-45 minutes tops. It's one that gets pulled out quite often now, and against what I thought was going to happen, has risen to the top of one of my favorite games. And I absolutely love it. Thanks for watching Plumpy Thimble. We'll see you next time.